Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. Situation in Russia continues to be tense. Earlier in the day, the Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the nation, accusing Wagner Chief Yevgeny Prigozhin of treason. He said Russia is fighting for its future and that there was no scope for internal differences at this critical juncture. Putin has described the mutiny by Wagner Chief as a stab in the back, vowing to punish the traitors.
Actions that split our unity are apostasy from our people, from our comrades in arms who are now fighting at the front. This is a stab in the back of our country and our people.
Спину нашей стране и нашему народу. Как президент России и верховный главнокомандующий.
As President of Russia and Commander-in-Chief, as a citizen of Russia, I will do everything to defend the country.
Жизни и безопасности.
To protect the constitutional order, the lives, security and freedom of its citizens.
Готовил военный мятеж.
Those who organized and prepared the military uprising, who raised arms against their comrades, betrayed Russia, will be held accountable for it. I call on those who are being dragged into this crime not to make the fatal and tragic, inimitable mistake to make the only right choice. Stop participating in criminal actions.
Участие в преступных действиях. Верю, что мы сбережем и отстоим то, что дорого и свято для нас.
Yevgeny Prigozhin has escalated his direct challenge to the Kremlin. He has pledged to oust the leadership of the Defense Ministry in Moscow over what he says is their disastrous leadership during the war in Ukraine. Prigozhin also issued a video from inside a building announcing that he has taken control of the army headquarters in Rostov-on-Don in a city in southern Russia. He also claims that his fighters control the city's military sites, including an aerodrome, after vowing to bring down Moscow's top brass. He now says his mercenaries are headed for Moscow in an attempted takeover.
We are at the Rostov military headquarters. It's 7:30 a.m. We have taken Rostov objects under our control, including an airfield. The jets which are leaving for battle with Ukraine are moving as scheduled. There are no issues. Medical planes are taking off. There are no problems. We have taken all of it under control so that the Air Force conducts strikes not against us, but against the Ukrainians. The main operational headquarters is functioning in the usual way. There are no issues. Not a single office is being distracted. So, when you are told that Wagner PMC has interfered with some department's work and that something has collapsed on the front lines, we are not the reason for that collapse.
Пока их не будет, мы находимся здесь, блокируем город Ростов и идем в Москву.
Russian authorities have put in place tighter security measures in Moscow after the head of the Wagner mercenary group called for the ouster of Russia's military leadership. Military vehicles were subsequently seen on the streets of central Moscow. Amid growing concerns about the risk of an attack on the capital, Russia's security officials have introduced roadblocks around Moscow, something which is being reported as the Kremlin's fortress plan. The plan is rarely used and is intended to repel an attack on security force installations in Moscow. Russian media claims that it implies an emergency gathering of law enforcement personnel and taking control of especially important objects of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Federal Security Service, or the Federal Penitentiary Service. The plan also provides for blockading the buildings of law enforcement agencies and readiness by the forces on duty to repel an external attack. Things reached boiling point when the Wagner boss appeared to suggest that his 25,000-strong militia was en route to oust the leadership sitting in Moscow's defense ministry. He claims that the army was ready to die in the process. The Wagner boss alleged, without providing evidence, that the military leadership had killed a huge number of his fighters in an airstrike and vowed to punish them. Anti-Kremlin figure Mikhail Khodorkovsky has also come in support of Wagner Chief and urged Russians to back him. Russia is also blocking Google News inside the country. Several Russian internet service providers are preventing users from accessing Google News, which aggregates news from various sources. Moscow says that Ukrainian troops are taking advantage of infighting between the Wagner mercenary group and the Russian military to ready an assault near the East Ukraine hotspot of Bakhmut. Ukraine's President Zelensky's aide has said that the latest events are just the beginning of the end in Russia. The international community is watching their situation unfold. While the White House has said that it is monitoring the situation in Moscow, Germany and France too are watching the situation very closely. Now, for more on how Russian military might see an internal turmoil, we are being joined by our guest, Dmitry Babich, who has been an active journalist for 25 years with focus on Russian politics. Thank you for being with us. Now, Russian President Putin has accused the Wagner chief of treason. Take us through this move by Prigozhin.
Well, I think it was difficult for Putin to go against Prigozhin because Prigozhin obviously had been a friend of Putin for many years, and Putin is very loyal to his friends. This is the only explanation I can find for the fact that Prigozhin had been making absolutely outlandish statements during the last 2 months against the Ministry of Defense, against the Russian government in general, except Putin personally. And he was allowed to do it. You know, Putin did not react. But now, when Prigozhin and his men went against, you know, there was no fighting. They didn't shoot any Russian soldiers, but just they took control of the command center in Rostov. That is against the law, and Putin is a lawyer. So Putin, as a lawyer, judged it for what it was. It was a rebellion, a mutiny, and a breach of law. So legally, Putin has all the trumps, and he has the public opinion behind him. All the people in the media world, all the people whom I meet on the street, they're all in support of Putin in this situation, because they say if we have a war with Ukraine, it's a treason. Even if you did some good things for the country, to turn against the government right now is a treason. So I don't expect Mr. Prigozhin to win. I don't see how he can win because, okay, you call his men mercenaries. I don't think they are motivated only by money. I think the huge majority of them is motivated by Russian patriotism. So if they are Russian patriots, how can they go against Moscow? How can they disturb the peace in Voronezh or in Rostov? And if they want money, where are they going to get the money if not from Moscow, from the Moscow government and from the Russian finance ministry? Mr. Prigozhin is not going to pay them from his own pocket. So I see no way out for Prigozhin in this situation. Why he did it? I think he just overestimated his power. He was very successful in Africa. He was very successful in Ukraine militarily. So he started thinking too much of himself. What is interesting is what you cited right now, the reaction of the Russian opposition abroad. Mikhail Khodorkovsky supported Prigozhin. Maybe we're going to hear some positive sounds about him from the Western media. Well, that would be a huge irony of history, because look, look at the Western media. At least for 8 years, they had been demonizing Prigozhin. They accused him of using American social networks in order to help Trump win the election. They called Prigozhin the man who brought Trump to power. You know, this is, of course, wild lies, but this is what they said. So they had been demonizing Prigozhin for so many years, and now suddenly he's a hero. That shows that the Western media is biased. They just hate the Russian government and Russia in general, and they are ready to support any adventurist if only he is against the Russian government.
Right, Dmitry, what realistically are the chances of Prigozhin's offensive reaching Moscow?
Zero chances. I just don't see how that can happen. First, because his soldiers will not go against their country. Second, because they're a small minority. Okay, he has 25,000 men, but Russian army in general is more than 1 million. And he doesn't have the support of the population. Yes, there are some people in Russia who are unhappy with what they call soft way Putin is leading that war. Some of them may have sympathies for Prigozhin, but they are still a minority. Again, the Western media had been saying that there is a huge liberal opposition in Russia, pacifist opposition, that millions of Russians want Russia to lose that war. That's not the case. The liberal opposition is very weak. The other kind of opposition, people saying that the war should be led by more decisive, more cruel means, they are a substantive segment of public opinion. Some of them might support Prigozhin in the last few months when he made critical statements. But now, when he basically left his positions inside Ukraine and went against Moscow, even those supporters of him are going to, I think they're going to stop supporting him, because obviously Prigozhin's actions right now are serving Russia's enemies in the West and in Ukraine. So I don't see how he can succeed.
Right. Dmitry, thank you very much for bringing us all your valued insights there.
Thank you.